Okay, it's great to see everybody. We have two presentations today, and then we'll chat a little bit, but we might wrap up a little early. We're all attending the ICLDC conference, so enjoy Honolulu and Hilo. And yeah, who wants to go first? I think we have two, right? Maybe.
Hello, song. I will go next.
Yay.
So let me share my screen. So I kind of guess I'm breaking the rules because I already presented this, or I already taught this lesson. But I would really like to have feedback because it didn't go as smoothly as I thought it would. Um, so in a previous class, another intern with Hitlaish or Lyle James, Kuginte, she introduced the idea of, or she introduced the phrases Senudang Heidang, and it was really confusing for the students because they've primarily been learning Clink It. So I made this little clip art illustration to make it a little bit easier for them to understand, like without going into like extreme detail of like which question to ask first, mainly the dung versus dungs. And that went over pretty well. And so this first slide was just like a recap of like what we already learned. And then this lesson was going over helping language, because in other lessons there was not as much language being used. So I thought it would be really helpful to have the students say short little phrases when they need help or need something repeated. So I kept the slides really simple. And I know, Kune, you said no English. English shouldn't be on the slides. But I would like to explain my reasoning for putting English on there. And I would like feedback, especially on that. So like without like spending a lot of time explaining the different parts of hot kill, um, uh, because I don't think that the high school students would be very interested in me like going over each little bit of the sentence. And we used to have trade languages, so why not use English as a trade language until we get to an equal level where we can like stay in the language more, and then they'll be recognizing patterns in the sentences. But right now, I thought it would be useful to keep a little bit of English in there. And I also put little clip art images so that they will say the phrase, or I'll have them, I was having them repeat after me a couple times, and then I would choose a few students to like come to the board and repeat after me, and then I would critique their pronunciations. And then I had them try to remember these images. So yeah, I went through 8 different phrases, which I thought was a good amount of new phrases to learn. Yeah, I'll just quickly go through these just so you guys can see each slide. And then, yeah, this was the longest phrase. Some students were having a little bit of trouble with this one. And then somehow it was perfectly timed. The timing went amazing. And we had just enough time to like go over some like matching and kind of like a little pop quiz-ish type thing. So first I had the students repeat the phrase, and then, so there's no English on these slides, of course, obviously. um, and then I had them like remember, like really emphasize this phrase goes with this picture. And technology didn't work the way that I thought it was going to. I didn't know that they didn't have access to the pointer feature or like the little draw feature. I was going to have the students again, like come to the board, and I would say a phrase, they would repeat the phrase, and then I would want them to like click on the corresponding image. Um, but that didn't really work. So we kind of had to revert back to English a little bit because I didn't have a backup and I didn't put numbers on here. So they just had to like describe the little image. Um, yeah, that is all that I have. I welcome any and all feedback, and let me know if you want to like see any slides again or anything. Hala.
Who would like to start our compliments? Oh, someone made a suggestion the other day. They said not a sandwich, something, but we'll just say a sandwich. It'll still be a sandwich. Who wants to start our feedback?
I'll start. I really like the images. For me, I'm very visual and it helps me with remembering. So if I have a kind of picture to go with it, that really helps me. So I really love that about it. And I think keeping it to 8 was a really good idea. So they're not too overwhelmed and they're just focused for, I don't know how often you do lessons, but, at least a week, whatever they can practice in a week. So I thought that was really good. And, my comment about the English, my only thing I would say would be maybe make the Haida more prominent or bigger, and then make the English less emphasis on the English, maybe not the same size type font, and maybe make 110 and 120 or something, but more emphasis on the Haida than English, I would say, because I do agree. I think a lot of times for the very, very brand new beginners, we're going to have to give English. Or another option too that I like to do also is use color. For like my placemat one, I did like, okay, red over here in English correlates to the red over here in Hudkill, so that maybe you could see. I don't know, those are just little things I've done if I use English to show how it relates to the Haida, I guess. But yeah, I like it. I love it. I liked all the pictures. That was probably my favorite to remember, the little sayings. And I do have a question. Can you show me what the finger pointing was one? The slide with the finger pointing? I missed that one. Sorry. Hella.
Was this the one that you're talking about, Sanjat?
Yeah. Hella.
Yeah, I totally forgot to say that my HUDkill teacher, she has us print out all these cute little images. And I asked my host teacher if the students had access to a printer, and just with like timing things, it didn't work out that they had their own little images to like hold up. I really like that one too, because then it cuts out all the technology and it keeps their hands busy. It seems like the students are really distracted easily. So like even with high school students, I think like it would be useful to have like something in their hands also. How Sanjat?
Anna was asking to see your first slide too before you exit out your slide or your presentation.
Sorry, I didn't hear or see that in the chat. I apologize. Does it just like looking at this slide, does it make sense like with the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
I was thinking of that. This is all fabulous, and so I really like the approach using images in case Big Brother's out there. Oh, I love English. English is great. Yay, English. But I do like making it small, right? And just sort of, it's there to help. And I'm not against using, well, sometimes I'm against using English the further we go. But as we get started, it's totally fine. But I do use a lot of pictures, but then sometimes, like, can people tell the difference between a marten and a mink and and an ermine? And maybe that'll be the final exam, just like a weasel test. But I do think it's fine to use English, and I think what I'd recommend for a dialogue like this, so it's a slideshow, so you can just have 8 versions of this same slide. And so you just copy the whole slide. Usually you can right click and select duplicate. And then I would only have one line of dialogue for the whole image. So then it's very clear. I mean, sometimes it's a little cumbersome because then you got to click through it each time you're going to have someone else do a line. But that might be, I mean, I think they can figure it out, but I think you'd have to kind of explain it. Because I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so I can see the way the conversation should flow. But it might be worth sort of experimenting with only one line of dialogue per slide. Because then like, oh, I know it's my turn because I could see it right there. Oh, I know it's my turn because now I could see it move over to this. And that might help. But I haven't done it before, but that's what I thought when I saw it. I was like, oh, that'd be a neat thing to try.
I was thinking too, when we were in class when you presented this that first time, I know I didn't say anything, but I just started speaking in Tlingit to you guys about like Wasadua Sauka, Dekina, Klinach, what does it mean in Haida? And it would be cool if, like, because all those students have been practicing Tlingit so long, you could just nix the English and put the Tlingit there because they've been practicing it. And there's, more than enough people, happy to help and just copy and paste it right in there. And then you could probably even put the English real small in the footnote on the bottom where it says click to add speaker notes just per slide. And then it would help, a Tlingit speaker learn in Haida and then vice versa, learn the opposite language, which like I have family that's Haida as well, and it would help me to pick it up some more. Because like each kuaha and then your turn. And then we could just do away with the English, I think.
But we still love
Yeah, girl, we can collab.
Yeah.
English is okay.
Yeah, I just didn't know. I should have asked. Okay, let me explain a little bit about how my time with Litlaish has gone. Um, most of the times that he wants us to teach, our classes start at 8:15 a.m. At 8:14, he'll email us, who's up for teaching today? So, or like at 10:30 p.m., anybody want to teach tomorrow? So it's kind of like, I should have known that this was coming, but I didn't have a lot of time to prepare or like collaborate with a lot of different people. But I love all these ideas. How goodness, sheesh.
I think it'd be cool to see other slides too with like any other language and Tlingit, because like Tlingit has a lot of resources and a lot of people speaking it. I mean, it would be cool to see them in dual languages all the time. I think would be more helpful.
One nice thing about being in the classrooms, like with the practicums, is collaborating with other teachers. And because teachers who have been doing this for years, like I'm in the TCLO class, and Miss Jess and Mr. Hands are struggling with finding culturally appropriate clip art as well. And I think they're in the talks, or maybe in the beginning talks, of trying to find local artists to make culturally appropriate clip art that they can use in the classroom, because there's been some frustration with trying to find, like, I think they had an image of a native gal, but it was really not from Southeast. It didn't even seem to show much respect for female Native women at all. So it was something that she had brought up, and I just happened to see it just yesterday, and she had explained it, and I was like, gosh, it'd be so great if we can have support our local artists by asking, can you produce art that we could use in the classroom? And of course, it could be used for all three languages. So she said, I think that there's already talks of, she said that they're going to meet with SHI hopefully this afternoon. So I guess I just wanted to mention that there is hopes for having more culturally appropriate clip art. So, but I sense your frustration with trying to find things that are relevant, because like even trying to teach family members, mother, father, child, grandchild, like it's hard to find native images to represent our native families. So
Yeah, that's a good point. It makes me think of another thing, not related to this necessarily, although maybe I'll start with something related to what you presented, Tukshuke, is you could look at Jamboard, and so you could switch over to Jamboard. Um, I'm not sure if you folks should really be teaching right now. I think my understanding is you're supposed to be shadowing, just sort of observing. And so I might sort of reinforce that idea a little bit. But I'll take care of that. But so Jamboard might be one way to do it, or Quizlet, but it does require a lot of setup beforehand, which can be it's tough to set stuff up if you don't know that you're teaching, right? And so, but just in terms of like the future lessons that we envision, there's send packets to send home. There's also Quizlet or Jamboard. There's a software called Miro that we're going to take a look at after spring break. And I think y'all can get it for free because you're students. And I think if you become teachers, then it's also free, and so is Basecamp. And those are pretty expensive software. And Miro is like a really interactive planning software. So it's there to help you sort of take notes and do sort of strategic planning, brainstorming exercises. Let's see, the other thing I was thinking about is Google Slides does allow you to integrate audio if you wanted to do that as well. So does a number of different programs that are out there. Then I had, so the other thought that I had, just in terms of thinking of, because I know we started talking about families, the other thing we should always keep in mind with families is kids don't always live with their parents. Kids don't always have like the mother and the father there, and also kids could have, not everybody has the same living situation. So I do think we should always keep in mind that sometimes there's a bias there to just think of a mother, father, and then siblings and stuff. And sometimes if we just go out to grab stuff out of the world, like clip art or like, translating books, then we accept the values of whoever makes those and whoever's distributing them. And sometimes we could end up making some kids feel like they're left out. I know there's some kids in a lot of different programs that would talk about that because maybe one of their parents is not involved, or maybe their parents are not what would be considered typical in terms of what's currently usually being produced. So those are just things to keep in mind as we are sort of thinking for kids, like doing a kinship exercise. There is kinship, but then there's a whole bunch of stuff that we just got to sort of say, oh yeah, this is just an example, but you can fill in the blanks with whatever you want here. That way all folks get to have a chance. And so, and then as we do this stuff for Indigenous languages, and we also have to think, well, even though maybe a kid's not Indigenous in your class, they still have a kinship structure, and then we could just show them how it applies to the way that we view kinship. So awesome stuff. Any other thoughts?
Just really quick on that. We actually talked about that today because I'm in the following Kyle Worrell, and he was meeting with the instructor at Zantakahini, and they were going through kinship terms, like literally, that's where they are right now. And one of the other teacher mentioned that one of the students' parents in particular was triggered by the whole what the idea of a relationship is, a father, mother, even eagle raven dynamic was a little bit triggering for some of their students, because they're like, well, both my parents are eagles or ravens or whatever. And one person's like, I don't know my dad. So one of the things that we noticed is that in one of Kyle's examples, he uses the Simpsons family tree. And so I don't know how culturally relevant that is for kids. But it's like part of the exercise is, you are Bart Simpson. Who's your outer shell? And you go through the family tree and you go, okay, um, and Lisa is a raven. So what is Lisa? What is Marge? So you're going through and figuring out the family tree by putting the kids in these. And there might be a more timely family, I don't know, but I was like, do kids know Simpsons anymore? But putting them as one of the Simpsons characters, and then using the relationship, saying like, oh, well, if I'm Bart, then my mom's name is Marge, so things like that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I ran into I did another lesson previous to this one, and I kind of ran into a similar issue. Kachsin, I don't know if you were there, but we were going over introduction, and this one student, they didn't know their grandparents' names, and they didn't know their father's names, and I was like, I didn't think about this. And then I was like, okay, well, we can just put in names, anybody's names. What names do you like? But I could tell that student really like shut down, and I felt really bad about that. And then another thing about us teaching already, I honestly don't feel really comfortable teaching. Because like I just started learning in June, and I have really great teachers, but I really wanted to go over the mouth chart, and explain to students like where all these sounds happen inside of their mouths. But I didn't do a lesson on that because I don't feel ready to teach, and if I share wrong information, I don't want students to learn or other people to learn something that's wrong just because I'm not prepared. So how Hune for wanting to speak up about that.
Yeah, yeah. And so as we often have to say in language programs, is it's going to be better for future generations because you guys are suffering. And so as we build the program, it's sort of like there's a lot of times where we're like, wait, what are we supposed to be doing with this? Because it has never been offered before. And so I really appreciate everybody's flexibility and hopefully determination and humor and not giving up as we figure out how to do these things. And so, because I didn't know that either. I knew it, but then I forgot. As soon as I got assigned mentees, I was like, okay, get out there and change the world. And I'm like, no, 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 they're supposed to just watch. I was like, okay, watch, and then you'll change the world later. So yeah, we'll just reinforce that and send the word out again. Other thoughts, or is there another? I think we have one other lesson for today. Fabulous work. I really enjoy it. I really like what you showed us. How
I had a thought, I guess, before we get to the next person. So I was recently offered a position teaching, and I kind of was like all for it, but on the same hand, I was thinking I probably shouldn't, because I'm still in school. There's a lot for me to learn, a lot for me to do before I take that on. I mean, and I've been in classes where it's like leading this and that, but it's not the whole full spectrum of like someone kind of walked in yesterday on me in the class and was like, you don't have this, you don't have this, you don't do, where's everything, where's it all written out? How are you gonna, you're just gonna teach them art? And I was like, no, but I guess if you put it that way. But that's what I was thinking. Like, I don't know. I don't know that I should jump into that kind of role yet. Like you mentioned, we're still students. We're not really ready yet, right?
Yeah, and it's a little interesting when you have like a career opportunity as well. And so should you take it, and would it be there later? And so that's a we could talk later about that. I know you sent me an email. I haven't replied yet. So um, yeah, because also, and there's a number of points to that as well. And I try to stay pretty fluid with a lot of this stuff. There's these lines between being prepared, understanding what kind of teacher you want to be, which sometimes matches your personality and also your ways of delivering information, running a classroom, dealing with. You also have there's a lot of politics to being a teacher. You have to sometimes get people together in the room that don't like each other, or maybe like their clan doesn't like their clan. Like it could get like so real so fast. And then there could be all kinds of other things when you're dealing with it didn't take me long to figure out, like, once we get to the chapter where we're talking about kinship and family, everybody's trauma just reawakens because we have that. And I've heard all kinds of stuff. People have said, well, my mom's a cultural leader. How come I don't know anything? And they're crying. They're crying in class because they don't know even just the most basic stuff. And then we also have people who are like, I want to talk about my dad, like he left. And so, and then there's all kinds of situations. And so, but the way to sort of find those ways to is just say, like, well, this is how things used to be, but that we're not going to judge people we're not here to judge anybody. Um, but just sort of, it takes time, and it takes like discussions like this, and it takes observation to sort of figure out how you're going to handle those things. Because we have really big questions. There's some really big questions that teachers are responsible for figuring out how to navigate together, not like you alone. But we just heard one the other day, which is how do you change your own people when they're not themselves anymore, right? The identity issue, the colonization, and then trying to decolonize, but then to do so in a way that will also sort of continue to push some things along as well, and bring the language to places that it's maybe never been, right? Never been. So then also, on top of that, you have other things to deal with what if you have people who are elders, but they're toxic in terms of the energy they bring and the ways that they might attack people. And so I've been there. I've seen it. Where if you didn't speak the language, you'd think someone's just giving a speech. But if you speak the language, you're like, oh, they're trashing that person right there, right in front of everybody. And so it gets tough when these things go counter to the values, right? So if you listen to the language and you listen to the elders and they talk about these values, but then you see them not being practiced in an immersion environment, it gets really tough. It gets really tough, and you have to build a strong network and a strong team, and that team has to be able to have some of these discussions, and some of those discussions also might have to include, hey, we're going to have to violate our own principles sometimes and step up and say, okay, we're not hurting people here. You can't do that. You can't. And what if you guys say it's someone who's 80 years old? Yeah, I mean that's a hard thing. That goes against, because we were at a thing, and somebody wasn't hurting anybody, but they were so far off topic, and they're supposed to give like this little 10-minute thing, and we're 35 minutes in, and this person's over 90, right? They're over 90 years old. And someone says, you're going to have to get them to stop. You're going to stand up and say something. Just say thank you or something. And I said, you got the wrong guy for that job, because I'm not doing that job. But, at the same time, there was a language summit a couple of years ago. And my job was to keep everybody in Clink It while we were doing that. And so when people switch to English, I would just tell them, no. Oh, I love English. Don't forget. But I would just say, no English here. We're not using English. If you can't say it, don't say it. You just say it some other time. There's the last big gathering of speakers we might ever have. And somebody came up to me and said, you know what happened to us in the boarding schools? You know what they did to us? I was like, yeah, I know what they did to us. And they said, you're doing the same thing to us right now. And so I said, well, I heard what you're saying, but I completely disagree with that. And so, but you're going to have to deal with these things, because these are the things that And I was just talking with some teachers just the other day. I was like, how are we going to make it, how are we going to create this world where we could say, oh man, you remember 20 years ago? We used to get just arrows shot at us every night. We used to get raked over the coals. We used to not have any materials. Ah, man, it's so awesome now. We don't, I mean, there'll always be a certain level of criticism and people trying to hurt each other. But I think our goal is to get that to the absolute bare minimum so that when it happens, we're like, that's happening? How bizarre. So that's my ramble for the day. Okay, do we have another? I think there should be one more.
So I'm very happy also that you want to kind of speak up that we should be more shadowing right now, because last Tuesday, I taught a little lesson to fifth graders, and my host teachers are Duffy and Clink It over in Huna, so I just call into the elementary and the middle school sometimes, or the middle school sometimes, I mean. And so most of the interactions, all the times that I've been observing were with the younger guys, like pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade. And so all of a sudden I'm interacting with like the fifth graders, and I do a very small, my name is, I live in Huna, because they're all in Huna. And it was just my first lesson, not my favorite, but then I was supposed to present last Wednesday after the day I had before. Was not feeling it, and I was all panicky. And so then actually the next day I had to do a first grade lesson with the first graders. And let's see, kiss, come here. I did puppy time. I taught them 3 phrases. I taught them, worked with some phrases because they already know the Gusu Gushki or Thumpkin song. And so at the end, there's a part where it says turn around and sit down. And so Duffy specifically always does this motion and sit down with the song. And so we use that same motion with her, who's teething really bad right now. So we did Gnu, we did Cajun Diki, we did Hyundai Jin, and I didn't do any like visual things for them because I mean, I don't think they're actually reading Clink It yet, like the fifth graders were. So we just said it, I told it to them, had them repeat with me. And then once I felt like they had the phrases down, I made them shout them at the computer to make my puppy do them. And afterwards, I didn't think about that. I was like, oh no, they might have had a classroom next door, like right next door. And I was having them shout it because I couldn't really hear them that well. But now I will be switching and calling into Shikeki more to the older kids. And so far, every interaction I've had with her was going into like the kindergarten or first grade classes where I already am. And she's just bringing along the older kids to like read to them. And so I guess more of that was my presentation of like what I've done so far. But now I'm switching into the junior high kids, and I kind of more of just need help, y'all. I know how to deal with babies. I've been around babies so much, but I don't know how to help the teenagers where I should be really, I don't know.
You find out how, you let us know.
Okay, let's start our feedback. Anybody want to respond?
I'll start. I love the interactiveness of it. It's fun. I love the fun aspect. That's really cool for the young kids. I wish I had a dog now that I could do that. But I guess I have a question more like is my biggest thing I wanted to say is, did it work? Did your dog listen to the kids? Did the dog actually respond? awesome. I think that's like so instantly gratifying for the kids, you know, like they're going to remember that forever. I think, you know, I think of me, if I was a little kid and I learned something and I immediately was able to turn around and apply it and it worked. Oh my gosh, to me, that'd be so like, I'll remember that word probably for the rest of my life. So I think that's a really awesome job. Hutla Aliagan.
Goodness, geez, yeah. So the next day, Friday morning, I was on a call, like for meeting my requirement, the hour requirement. Sometimes I join the scope and sequence with Duffy and Skakey and Florence Shakely. And well, anyways, I forgot where I was going with that part real quick, but when I was on that call, the teacher aide from that first grade class, she was in the room with Heather, and Heather handed her the phone. Someone I've never seen before or anything. She just, because like I was joined on FaceTime with her, and she handed the phone to I guess as a teacher aide, and she wasn't in view when I was doing my lesson, but she was in the room. And I guess the kids have all talked about puppy time a lot lately, and today I had class with the kindergartners, and then right after that I called in with Aki, and she was going down to that same classroom to read to them. So it was so funny that I felt like I needed to rush to do that lesson and then go join Heather, who was going to the exact same classroom. But yeah, sorry, I got distracted by her. She's got me really good.
Yeah, I think dog commands are really fun because and like pet and like just sort of like I like this idea of things you can say in a specific situation. And so I think we did a series of like dog commands. There's a little poster with a dog named Sebastian that I can't remember where I found it, but somebody made it a long time ago. And so we're using that as an example. And then there was a whole bunch of commands that we did, except for fetch, because fetch and clink it gets difficult because it's sort of like depends what you're throwing. If it's a ball, then it'll just be the same every time. But yeah, and I think it's neat to sort of do those things. And again, like, yeah, so we're going to try and just reinforce this a little bit so that you folks are just kind of watching and getting ideas and maybe starting to get pulled in. But yeah, maybe not leading the lessons yet, but just sort of trying them out in here. So then, yeah, just in terms of like what kinds of commands, like sit and stay, lay down, bring it here, drop it there, and there's a whole bunch of things that you typically say with a dog, which are kind of fun. There's an elder in Carcross. She was telling me a story. She said she has a little dog, and she brought it in to get like groomed, and then she went to pick up her little dog, and she's, how did he do? And they said, gee, your dog's bad. Just doesn't listen to anybody. Doesn't listen to anything. She's like, really? She looks at it, she says, Qannu, and it sits down. So it only spoke Tlingit, so that was my little inspirational dog. I was like, yeah, you tell him, dog. Again, what we love English. I'll just keep my joke going.
To kind of curtail off that, I mean, one of the things to motivate me for learning Tlingit was one time I went to Sitka to go get herring eggs, and I was sitting with my grandma, and we just watched like tapes of old WWF wrestling. And we just sit there, and she was, she elderly at the time, and she had this little terrible dog, and she goes, "You want to see it do tricks?" And I go, "Okay." And she'd start speaking Clink It, and it'd start doing these tricks like sitting up, sitting down, going doing this, spinning around in circles, and I was like, "Wow." She goes, "This dog knows more Clink It than anyone else around here." And I was like, "Wow, that's so interesting." But it was sort of a motivation. I was like, wow, that is a good point. I was like, this dog knows more Clink It. Because she only spoke Clink It to the dog. And it was the same thing. It didn't listen to anybody. It would like bite me if I came close. But loved her and only spoke Clink It, or listened to Clink It. But so I think this is fantastic. I think, yeah, documenting if there are hand signals and stuff like that. These could be all little videos or something that I can imagine. I'm just picturing my daughter trying it, watching these videos and trying to teach the dog all of these things and the repetition from it. It's like teaching the dog, but you're learning yourself as well. So I think that's a really kind of a cool thing. And I wouldn't be too discouraged about the first lesson that you did. I mean, I've definitely bombed a lot of lessons I've taught. And one of the things you do is you learn from it. And sometimes you're like, oh, I have to teach the same thing 4 times today. So, and by the fourth time, you're like, yeah, that's kind of what I had in mind. So, but I love that. I think that's great. And I think it's something that kids would latch onto and pay attention and remember.
Miss Tish, yeah. Fun fact about like hand signal things with training Naga. So for Gnu, this was the signal that I taught for her, and the other week I recently just went on a walk with my cousin's girlfriend and their dog. His name is Sundance, and the girlfriend is Navajo, so she speaks to him in Dene. And really cool thing, that was the same signal she has for her dog in Dene for sit down. I don't remember how to say it, but I just thought that was really cool. And also, one of the calls that I was in for the Scope and Sequence with the Huna people, one of them, when I was telling her about the lesson that I was doing with Naga, and told her how overall we're training her in Clink It, and she was like, "Oh, that's really cool, but you might as well, you better just have a bilingual dog and teach her some English too. That way she can listen to everybody too." And I said, I think I'd rather just take the time to teach everyone Clink It. And so I was like, she said, "Oh yeah, fun."
Yeah, like so hand signals are really great. I think I talked about this before, but when our first child was born, and so there's a couple things. So before we had kids, one of my teachers at Fairbanks, she was British, but her mom was French, and so I went to her house one time and had tea. It was very fancy tea, and had fancy tea like that before, and we just talked about projects and stuff, and I noticed when she talked to her kids, she would talk to them in French, and so I just said, "Hey, I was just curious, like, do you only talk to them in French?" And she said, "Yeah, because my mother was French, and my mother and I only spoke French, and so I've always wanted to just only speak French with my kids." And I was like, "Oh, does it work?" She says, "Well, they understand everything, but they usually don't. If I make them say it, they'll say it, but they usually don't speak it." I was like, "Oh, okay." Then I had a friend from Uruguay, and so she only spoke Spanish to her son, and so this was at the same time, these two different friends. And so then I talked to her about it as well, and just talked about how it was going. And then when we're gonna have a baby, I was like, we should do this like one parent, one language thing. And so we decided to do that. And with all my kids, like the first words they ever heard out when they were born, of course they could hear before that, were in Clink It. And then I've always spoken to them in Clink. I'll speak English around them, but when I speak to them, I'll say it in Clink It. But I don't make them speak Clink It back to me. And so that's the other thing is they can, but they don't do it very well. But I thought I'd show you folks this because we talked about the Gusugushki. I just want to show you guys this real quick. This is 8 years ago.
Here I am, here I am. What's a E-A-T? What's a E-A-T? They can even sing. What's a E-A-T? How does that song go?
But she would switch, so she would switch back and forth between English and Tlingit, and so if she couldn't figure, but then she would also recall things and put different things in there and stuff. And it was really interesting too because if you do that, um, you make it easier for them to learn. But the part we're all going to have to figure out is how do we push them into this whole language environment? And I think it kind of goes back to some of the stuff I saw in Hawaii with this kid that had just lays and they had money. They had so much stuff because their parents and grandparents and family members and relatives and friends showed them in front of everybody what you're doing is important. And I think that's the probably one of the missing elements. Like, and it's my fault and it's others, but just in terms, and I keep saying, like, what's the answer there? Like an annual sort of spring celebration where we just take these young people and these other folks who are learning the language, and then kids who are sort of becoming this next generation of birth speakers, which is, talk about the impossible task. Is like, oh, there haven't been birth speakers for 60 years. Go make some. And you're just trying to figure it. There's a lot of times of just look at my baby and be like, what am I even gonna say to you, baby? I don't even know. Um, but I think, there again, you just sort of you got to recreate these environments. And I think, to be honest, enough time has gone by that a lot of people, they don't really remember how to talk to kids in the language, right? Because we spent probably two whole generations at least not raising kids in the language, and that's enough time to forget a lot of stuff. Any other thoughts?
I just wanted to mention too to Tukshake about your experience because it seems like you felt that you caused harm. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew you didn't cause the harm. The people who split up our families and our culture caused the harm. And don't be too hard on yourself. I think you did a good job.
Yeah, great job, everybody. And as we do this stuff more, we'll figure out, like, how do you be inclusive and how do you deal with people who aren't, because you might have someone who's also a learner and is contributing to an unsafe environment, right? Whether they're being homophobic or transphobic, or they're being, there's a bunch of stuff people can just sort of say, um, well, we never complained in my day, or there's all kinds of things people can do, just sort of like say you need to just be tough, and I experienced that a lot with our culture as well, where people's, you're not supposed to be grieving publicly or something like that. I was like, who are you to tell me what to do? Like, I'm going to do my process, and I don't need you to tell me to try and shame me for like expressing that I'm sad because my mother died. I was like, get out of here. And so, but all this stuff, like as we build the culture, like we have to study the culture, we have to understand the culture, but we also have to have this hypersensitivity to see, like, when am I seeing something that's just actually unhealthy. And that it's a difficult thing to navigate, but I really think you build a network of folks that you trust, who are like-minded and learning the language, using the language, studying the culture, living the culture, but also looking at the culture, because all cultures, they need to be examined at all times by the people who make it. Like, we make the culture what it is, our elders, us, our children. And so understanding that, because some people, they'll convey our cultures as if they're things that can never change and should never change. And sometimes there are things where we're like, it's actually kind of misogynistic and not helping us. Because one of the things that I noticed is what's typical for a lot of language programs is there's more females than males who go into the language program. I would probably venture to guess there are more people who are on a gender spectrum than just a rigid this thing or the other thing than normal. So it just seems like there's a large percentage of folks, and there's maybe something to that, just in terms of, well, I don't have a rigid identity because I can be, and I think might be something to that in terms of moving out of monolingual English tendencies into multilingual tendencies that include indigenous languages. But one of the things that I noticed is, like, so a typical group of people who begin learning Clink It would probably be 60% to 70% Clink It, and then there'll be a 30% of mix of other things. And then probably one or two folks from another Indigenous group, and then probably 1/4 of the people will be white. And then the other thing that I noticed, and that other scholars have noticed, is that sometimes the white people learn faster. And that's a bit strange, right? Then the only reason I say it's strange is because like it can create hard feelings, because then someone who might be Indigenous, like, oh. But then at the same time, I've seen a situation where like some Indigenous person will stand up and say something and everyone just kind of nod their head. And then like a white person will stand up and say, and everybody just claps as if they just sort of made the greatest speech of all time. Which I think it's great that people want to come and want to learn our languages and be with us and take responsibility for the lives of our languages. But also, I think Indigenous communities are tougher on our own women than our men. And this is something that also creates these environments of inequity and difficulty that are not helping us. And so these are things that continue to require not only examination, but foundational changes to our people, which is tough, because then again, it comes back to the teachers. The teachers will raise the next generations. You can adjust the current generations, but only to a certain extent, but you can do a lot to shape the future generations. But sometimes you're also trying to shape them in resistance to some of their own family members, which is tricky, and we're running out of time. But these are all things we'll continue to talk about. Any other thoughts? We have 2 minutes left. Anything we didn't talk about yet?
This is Sonny. I just was listening and everything is very good. And I always try to think about my own part that I play within any situation. But what helps me, and I like to share that with you, is just remembering we're all here and we're all committed and we are all going to make it. Even if it's a tiny step at a time, it's going to be beautiful. And that's what we need to worry about. I think there's a word, it's Hade. We are here.
Sheesh. Okay, folks. Well, good luck signing up. So try and watch as much of this conference as you can. If you have any problems registering, finding the thing, let me know and I'll do my best to help. But also just reach out to the conference organizers and just say, I'm in this class. I thought they paid for all of us, but I can't register. And then hopefully hopefully they'll just push you right in, because that's what they should do. But I also know that they're probably super overwhelmed dealing with a whole bunch of people going on to their online thing at the same time. Enjoy your spring break. Look ahead to the reading. Let me take a quick look so that I can just give some reminders before we go. We are in the packet for week 9 or week 10. So we have redefining the Ojibwe classroom. Let me see. It's a 9-page article. We have Rethinking Native American Language Revitalization by Haida scholar Frederick White. That's 22 pages. And then we have The Benefits of Second Language Acquisition and Teaching for Indigenous Language Educators. That's 18 pages. So you've got time. You got a whole week, but don't forget that you have some reading and some other stuff to do. We will take some notes. If you could just note which sessions you go to or that you watch, and if you can only watch the films or something, that's good enough. Just do what you can. I don't want you to feel like you're left out though. So if you can't access the Zoom stuff, let me know and I'll try to help you get access to it. Okay. Oh, shucks. Yeah, they might have sent it to a different email. So you might have to... okay. Yeah. It should be, if you're telling a dog to jump, it could be at ishken. So I'll put that in the chat. Yeah, I think that's it. So enjoy your week. Enjoy the conference. And we'll see you folks after next week, whatever the date is after that. Cheesh.
Hasta luego, King Song.
Cheers, see you,
Erickson.
Excellent.
Get dog den.
The dog in. And K-ishken would just be like jump. And then at nishken would be jump around. So I'd probably say K-ishken.
Guinness cheese, yeah, that second one is the one that she gave me, but you know, it was just over the video call and I could just feel it. She got tired of repeating herself while I was trying to learn it. I was like, okay, yep, nope, I'm done. Thank you. All right, Guinness cheese.
Take care.
Bye.